In the previous episode, I talked about the type of person we need to be in order to tackle problems. But is that just enough? Changing who we are. We have to know how to handle problems as well. In today's episode of Thinking Out Loud, let us see how we can deal with our problems better by understanding them better.
You are thinking out loud. Right here, right now.
Hey, this is Rahul George from the Thinking Out Loud podcast, welcoming you to another episode. Today, before we move on, I want to put these two words in front of you. Focus and perspective. I'm sure you have heard of these words before, but I would like you to think, what is the difference between these two? Focus is what we choose to look at, and perspective is where we are looking from. Now that is out there, keep these words in your mind as they will help you with what lies ahead. When faced with a difficult situation, it is very easy to focus on the negative and forget the positive. That's because we choose to. But imagine if we chose to change our perspective. Where would our focus lie then? Would it be on something else? Why do you think that is? Is it due to the clarity we gain while changing our perspective? Let's find out. The first step is to ask ourselves, do we have a problem? We only have a problem when we feel we have one. And it is very important to understand what we feel about it. Once we know what we feel about it, we know the problem we are facing. If I take my case, I genuinely feel I have a problem. My problem is that I am not consistent with anything I do. I generally start off at a very good rate. But as time passes, I feel the quality goes down. My problem is that I am not consistent. That's what I'm looking at. That's what I focus on. Now that we have established what the problem is, it is time to trace it back to the point of origin. Tracing it back to the origin helps us see the entire history of the problem. It helps us notice the patterns. We no longer see an isolated incident, but a series of incidents. If I look into my situation, I noticed that the problem started to arise 3 years ago when I first joined university. Initial academic performance in the semester was decent, but as it progressed, it dipped. This went on into my club work as well. Wherever I look, I can see this problem happening. It is the same pattern always. Now that we have traced the problem back to the point of origin, let's do something. Break down the problem from all the patterns we see. My example again. When I start something, I get really committed and give a lot of myself to it. I get way too invested, way too fast. As time goes by, I start to feel a bit tired. But this intensity is still required to be maintained. But as I struggle to keep up, I see others around me going strong. This leads me to feel bad, as I'm the only one struggling to keep up. This makes me feel lousy and leads me to give up further. Oh my Lord, I hate that feeling. To escape that, I quit so that I don't have to deal with it anymore. I've broken down my problem here, and I invite you to do this as well. How breaking it down helps is that we get to see the various factors that affect this problem. Instead of focusing on one thing right now, we focus on multiple things. Our perspective on the problem is changing. My case, the problem initially was that I am not consistent. However, after breaking it down, I feel that's not the problem. And I think you guys would feel the same as well. I look at the factors. Invested way too fast. Getting exhausted. Struggling to keep up. Ends up getting demotivated. Looking for an escape. I look at these factors and I realize my problem is not me being inconsistent. My problem is that I floor the accelerator when it is not even needed. You see, the problem has become more clearer for me now. I'm sure if you're facing a problem and do this as well, the problem will end up being more clearer for you as well. Once we have gained clarity, it is necessary to find that one minor change we can make to start tackling the problem. What I can do is not to floor the accelerator. Rather, I can take things slow and pick up the pace eventually. It is one minor change, but trust me, it will have a massive butterfly effect. Now, while we have done all this, it is important to do one last thing. Understand how the problem is going to be a problem moving forward. This helps us prepare for what comes ahead. I look at me and I realize I'm going to face a lot of problems ahead. I have to ensure that I don't get too worked up in the beginning and calm myself down. I might feel a bit anxious, but I have to understand it's alright. I have to look long term rather than short term. From realizing that I have a problem, to breaking it down, to gaining clarity, to understanding how it has changed, to realizing how it is going to be a problem ahead. It feels like a huge weight has been lifted off. Things will not be easy coming ahead, but they will be relatively easier. It has been 2 months since I figured this out. Things have started to change a lot for the better. What we choose to focus on is totally up to us. Sometimes we choose to focus on what we cannot take control of. But when we choose the ones we can take control of, that makes us feel empowered. Tackle the problem that you can take control of and see how it helps you not only understand them better, but overcome them as well. This is Rahul George from the Thinking Out Loud podcast. I hope this episode helps you, and if it did, please do share it with people who can get benefited from it as well. Please do share, and I shall see you in the next episode.
You are thinking out loud. Right here.